Unsafe military housing was front and center on Capitol Hill. President Trump's nominee to be Assistant Secretary of the Navy was grilled by the Senate Armed Services Committee. That was one of many pressing issues at today's confirmation hearing. 13 News Now military reporter Mike Gooding has the highlights.
I'm kind of livid about this because as a commanding officer, it is about taking care of our people, and we've let them down.
Assistant Secretary of the Navy nominee Charles Williams said the privatized housing companies that have exposed up to 200,000 military families to toxic mold, lead paint, water damage, and infestations need to make things right.
They ought to be embarrassed that this kind of property management goes on. Our sailors should not have to put up with that and their families. I don't get it.
Williams was also questioned on the conditions at the nation's 4 publicly owned naval shipyards, where over the last 5 years, 75% of scheduled maintenance was not completed on time. He vowed to get to the bottom of that problem, too.
It really comes down to readiness, and we've got to have these ships be able to turn them faster. You can have the most technologically advanced ship, the most capable ship, but if it's sitting in a shipyard and can't deploy, it's not doing any good for anybody. So we got to focus on that, and that'll be one of my focuses.
Senators also heard from the nominee to be the next Secretary of the Army, James McPherson. He was asked about the continuing problem of military suicides, which he called disturbing.
Leaders need to know what's going on in the lives of their soldiers. They need to be able to identify a soldier who's at risk, take them off the playing field for a necessary period of time, and get them the help they need.
Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
I'm not good enough.
Calvin and Rachel Kilpatrick never imagined living in military housing might put them and their 4 children in harm's way.
When did you first start noticing the problems in the house?
As soon as we moved in.
The day we moved in.
Rachel, a U.S. Army specialist, took a job repairing medical equipment at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. A year ago, they moved into this house.
When you turned on our shower head, green sludge came out of it.
That was just the beginning.
This ceiling caved in?
Yep.
Water leaking from ceilings, from the AC unit, seeping through the back door, termite damage, and worst of all, they say, mold. Their multiple requests for repairs went to Corvius, one of many private companies that manage properties like these.
We kept being told to stay in our lane, that we didn't know what we were talking about.
But then came health problems, trouble breathing, and other symptoms, doctors said, brought on by the mold.
I had to go to the ER 4 or 5 times.
The Military Family Advisory Network conducted a survey and got more than 16,000 responses. 55% had a negative or very negative experience with privatized military housing. Respondents across the country in housing under different management companies describe instances of black mold, lead, even asbestos, and some reported chronic illnesses, including respiratory ailments. Corvius' CEO testified at a congressional hearing last month.
That we let down some of our residents. I am sorry, and we are going to fix it.
In a written statement to NBC News, the company says it's working to reduce the backlog of work orders and improve our response time to service requests. At another hearing this week, Secretary of the Army Mark Esper admitted the Army could have done more.
In too many cases, it is clear the private housing companies failed to uphold their end of the bargain, a failure that was enabled by the Army's insufficient oversight.
Just days after we toured their house out of concern for the Kilpatricks, the garrison commander moved them out and offered them another home on base at no cost.
Families deserve to have a livable home. It just needs to be fixed.
A family like so many others serving their country, but fighting a battle they never expected here at home. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
Follow-up to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the Lincoln military housing. A federal jury finally reached a verdict. The family claims that they got sick from mold while living in Norfolk.
The first trial ended in a mistrial in January, but today the jury found Lincoln military housing negligent, but awarded the family far less than the $8 million the attorneys wanted. The lawyers for the family of Marine Gunnery Sergeant Joe Federico claim that mold gave him permanent brain damage from mold exposure. The jury awarded the family $350,000. Attorneys for the Federicos say that it's a mixed feeling for them.
We're all disappointed as to the monetary amount, but the fact of the matter is that justice has been served partially in that Lincoln is being held accountable And remember, like I said, there are 19 other families out there. And there are actually maybe thousands more out there.
The attorneys say they plan to file for a mistrial on the grounds that they don't believe Lincoln Military Housing can be both negligent but not in breach of contract.
Just like Democrats had from the very beginning.
All right, Brandy, thank you. You know, we recently also told you this morning about families at JBLM who say they were forced out of their homes because of black mold. This morning, we know an Army Inspector General report is out on the housing situation at JBLM and other military bases as well. And it says families at JBLM who reported bad on-base living conditions felt that they had faced retaliation for coming forward. John Hopperstad is here with more on this morning. John?
Yeah, guys, those families telling the Inspector General in this 30-page report just out this week that they did feel retaliation for coming forward from the private companies who oversee housing at JBLM. Investigators interviewed families across the nation, including dozens of people at JBLM, who say they are dealing with black mold in their homes that is sickening their children and forcing them to move into motels. Now, we have spoken to several moms about this issue who are upset about what they call unlivable conditions in their homes. It includes black mold. At least 46 families have moved out of their homes at JBLM into hotels after finding mold that they say is sickening their children. Now, they started a Facebook page that now has more than 900 members, all telling similar stories. But they say when they went to the private management company that handles housing, their complaints fell on deaf ears.
It just felt like a knife in my gut. Who on earth asks their daughter, who's 2 months old, to be diagnosed with asthma and almost die in her sleep?
Lincoln Military Housing is the private property management company that runs the housing at JBLM. Company is paying for the temporary accommodations, but released a statement saying in part that these families moved out voluntarily and it wasn't because of any health or safety issues. Now, in this report, it did find that housing inspectors often didn't go over things like mold or electricity issues. And this report, again, from the Inspector General goes back to February, looking into complaints about housing conditions. The Army now says it is part of a promise to improve on-base living conditions at all its military installations, including JBLM. Guys?
Well, today,
mold at military housing continues to be an issue for dozens of families here in San Diego. We first brought you this story 2 weeks ago when people living in the Santo Terrace community were being moved to hotels. News 8's Amanda Shotsky joins us live now with the latest on this ongoing problem. Amanda?
This community is operated by Lincoln Military Housing. They tell us they are taking the proper steps to fix this issue, but the families that we spoke to, they say their needs are not being met.
The Santo Terrace community is a little more quiet, now short of about 50 military families who are spending the holidays living in hotels.
A lot of these families are junior enlisted families who are already very strapped financially.
The move comes after mold was discovered inside several units. Earlier this month, we introduced you to Kimberly Dunn and her daughter Hope as they packed up their home in Murphy Canyon.
It's already stressful having someone gone and then relocating and doing all of that. It's not very easy.
Pictures sent to News 8 show thick black material in vents and floors. There's also been reports of illness due to the mold at several communities, all managed by Lincoln Military Housing.
I have lost trust in Lincoln and their ability to do what is in the best interest of my family.
Erica Hope Bradley lives at a Lincoln housing location on the MCAS Miramar base. She's become an unofficial spokesperson for the families who are affected.
We are asking for environmental testing to be done to prove that there are not toxic levels of mold in these homes.
We reached out to Lincoln Military Housing and received this statement saying in part, we understand the frustration and are working hard to fix these issues. Mold is always taken very seriously, which is why qualified professionals address it and why our treatment protocols exceed industry standards. But Hope Bradley says so far, those affected have not seen a difference.
You ask our loved ones to go to war, and we gladly do that for a country that we love, but we ask you to take care of their families that are at home.
And some of the affected families do plan to meet tomorrow. They are going to talk about speaking to their local representatives about this issue. But important to note here, this is not the first time that Lincoln Military Housing has been in hot water for mold. Just about 2 months ago, a local family won a $2 million lawsuit after claiming that their children got sick from that mold. Lincoln Military Housing has says that that ruling was unjust and they plan to appeal. Barbara Lee.
All right, Amanda, thank you.